Call a meeting to order. Secretary will note the roll call.
Yes.
Everybody's present. First item on the agenda is election of officers. And before we get started, I want to say I just completed my first year as president. And my commitments and stuff combined with that aren't gonna allow time. So if you open up any nominations, I'd appreciate your consideration and nominate one of the other 4 people. So I'll open the nominations for president. Are there any nominations?
I would like to nominate Andy Keel.
Okay. Andy Keel.
And I'll second.
I'll second that. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Except the.
Let me say something.
Goes without saying it. He's gonna say something.
Yeah.
You know, I know the thoughtfulness and the effort that Mike has put into being president. I have no desire to be president. I will be president because I think that's your obligation when you become a member of a group like this, to take whatever comes on. But this is not my ambition.
Well, appreciate that, but I've always been an advocate of changing guard every once in a while. I used to get so upset when they'd have the same president for 6 years in a row.
I remember that.
And I was always giving people garbage about that, so I'm glad things are working out the way they are. We have a motion and a second. Nominate Andy for president. Roll call.
Miller?
Yes.
Gershman?
Yes.
Keel? Neese? Yes. Myers?
Yes. Will we finish this out, or you want to take over now, Mr. President?
I don't want to sit there.
So finish it up.
I got the cheat sheet here if you want.
Stay where you are.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is to nominate a vice president. Are there any nominations for vice president?
I'd like to nominate Jennifer Meese.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other nominations? We got a motion and a second to select Jennifer Meese as vice president. Roll call.
Miller?
Yes.
Gershman?
Yes.
Keel?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes. And the third one is commissioner for secretary. Any nominations for secretary?
I nominate Nate Miller.
And one nomination for Nate Miller. Is there a second?
Second that.
There's a motion and second. Any other nominations? We have a motion second to elect Nate Miller as secretary of the commission. Roll call.
Gershman?
Yes.
Keel?
Yes.
Neese? Yes. Myers?
Yes. Thank you. What do you want to do, Mr. President?
Excuse me?
What do you want to do? You want to take it over?
No, I want to go home.
You can do
I
that.
already scared him off already. So
Your first action.
the last 1 week and he'll be gone.
What is the right thing to do?
You're president. You can,
Why don't you finish the meeting then?
okay, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Let's do that. We have an introduction for a new patrol officer. Chief, you have a little introduction?
I do. Would you stand up, Ellie? Officer Eckes started with us officially, I'd say about a month ago, but her first day in uniform was this past Monday. Ellie comes to us from Marshfield through UW Stout. She was a 2016 high school graduate of Marshfield, graduated in 3 years from UW Stout, to include criminal justice and I can't remember the other one. Rehabilitation major, and then a minor in psychology. We're happy to have her here, and yeah, she's been doing well ever since. Why I say it was a little unconventional was she was finishing out her final year of college, and we had already offered her employment, so on the weekends for probably about a month. She was coming back here and getting a lot of the orientation things completed, getting all of our policy manual read, just a lot of the, we have 3 weeks of orientation when we start training before you're actually out on the road learning what to do out in the community. And she was able to get that all completed in really less than 4 weekends. But she's a very hard worker. Obviously by her education you can see that and how fast she went through it. But yeah, we're excited to have her back here, and I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, congratulations.
Welcome to the department.
Thank you.
Yeah, now go out and stop somebody.
So, I was gonna say officially on camera, it's my first hire that I hired that was actually born after I was hired. So I was hired in March of '97, and Allie was born after that. So there's always, you never stop hitting firsts at some point throughout your career.
Well, just wait. You got a lot more coming.
Yeah.
We can go to approval of the minutes of the April 4th meeting. Is there a
Move approval.
motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Second, please. Are there any questions, changes, comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the fire department bills. Chief.
Good morning. In front of you, you have 2 sets of bills. Both were signed by Commissioner Gershman. First one on March 1st and the second set on March 16th. A lot of routine items included in there. On 6F, you'll note there's a charge of $23,000 and $373 for a power load system. That's part of the new ambulance purchase. That allows the crews to easily insert and remove the cot from the ambulance. It's safe on backs. Other than that, nothing else really stood out as being significant. When I looked through them, I'd be happy to answer any questions and ask for your approval.
Scott, when do you expect the new ambulance to be put in service?
The new ambulance should be here around September.
Hoping to have them in service by October.
Okay.
The new engine should be here sometime October-ish.
Yeah, that should, make sure you send us an email when it shows up.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
When the ambulance gets here, Stratford doing the graphics.
Yes.
So
Okay.
it'll come here and then it's gonna go up there for a few days to get the graphic package. And
They do
then,
the black and red, or?
No, it'll be very similar to our last ambulance, red with the white and black striping down the side.
All right.
and then, yeah, then it'll come back here, it'll get loaded up and put into service once we register with the state. So,
Okay.
Okay. Your motion to, okay.
Just one question on 6K for the meal reimbursement. Are those for just one person's meals?
I believe so. And here's a little backstory on that. So in our department, we don't have maximums for meal reimbursement. This particular one, when this one came across, we said we got to do something. We can't have that. So we're actually finalizing a policy. Yes, that would be just one individual. Finalize a policy that puts limits on meal reimbursements that are equitable to state rates.
Okay.
So,
So what do you think that number would be, Scott? I mean,
well, right now, the state rate that Department of Administration uses is $8 for breakfast, 10 for lunch, and
18 or 20
for dinner, something like that. So, I mean, if the crews decide they want to go on the way back and stop somewhere and they spend $15 on lunch, we're going to pay 10, they're going to pay the remainder.
yeah, you just don't want to have some abuse, and I think that's what the 8 points for the.
Yeah, no, and that's
about a 24-piece of KFC or something.
Yeah, stopping at Red Lobster or something, and all of a sudden we got a $40 lunch bill. And
Yeah,
we don't want
yeah,
that,
you
so-
want to cut on the cash.
Yeah, so that's being addressed.
Does that go in line with what the city rates are? Because I know they're going that up.
So,
for the city.
if I
Yeah.
may, again, this meal reimbursement was when we were following the city policy, which is a reasonable, is what it says.
Yeah.
The problem we came down with was what's reasonable to one person is not reasonable to somebody else. So, again, the chief decided we're gonna put an actual limit on it, so that way there's no question.
Then just on page 6F, I know like the screen protectors from, let's see, touched on Amazon before. Shoot. Yeah, touched on Amazon. So I'm not sure where it was purchased from, but I know if it wasn't locally, the local companies would love to have that business too.
Oh, that is something that IT purchased.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, when we all, our department, PD, and other city departments switched over from Verizon or USL to AT&T FirstNet, they took care of purchasing screen protectors, cases, everything.
Okay.
They wouldn't even give them to us until the screen protectors were on. So, but, no, I agree, you know, we can purchase locally, we do.
Yeah.
But that was all done through them, we just get the bill.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I guess just to add into that, I know in our police contract, we have $26 for a half a day of meals and $51 for a full day. And then we also have written in there that it could fluctuate based on whatever the state rate is. So where we consider a half of day of meals is either dinner or breakfast and lunch as the half a day. If you would end up going to a training and being there for lunch and dinner, it would be looked at as a full day of meals. But if it's either breakfast, lunch, or breakfast and lunch, that's a half a day, and then, or just dinner by itself. So there might be some differences between what the fire department does and what the police department does when you look through the bills and see meals as well reimbursed through the PD.
Thanks.
yeah. Good clarification. Yeah, you never know until somebody sends you something odd, right? So then it shows up, it's your intention.
Okay, we need a motion and a second to approve the bills.
I'll move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Are there any other questions, comments? Roll call.
Miller,
Yes.
Hirschman.
Yes.
Keel.
Yes.
Dees.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Approval of the police department bills, chief.
Yeah, thank you. 3 sets of bills. One of them is from May 1st, but 2 signed by Commissioner Miller, 1 by Commissioner Meese. The only things to bring to your attention is on 7P, as Scott had mentioned, we had gone with the FirstNet phones, and I think when our first bill came through, it was a little higher than what we had anticipated. One of the reasons is we ended up putting smartphones in each of our squads, and the reason for that, before we had flip phones, the reason for that was just to work better with some of the equipment and software that we're using now. A lot of, with our body cameras and the cloud storage that we utilize for our body cameras and our squad cameras, one option you have is you can take photos and videos with your phone and upload them to the cloud, and then there's less work that the secretaries or clerical staff will have to do when it comes to taking that evidence of a crime scene or of an accident scene. And then, you know, I mean, and another thing is the cameras that we had in the squads, which were just point and shoot cameras, often were unreliable with batteries being dead or being out in the cold weather and such. The memory cards going bad. So with these smartphones in the squads, we're able to take photos with those smartphones, department phones at scenes. They often take better pictures than what our point and shoot cameras were taking, and then upload those to the cloud. So there were some, I think between that and then there was another bill that had been coming through separately for our cradle points or our modems that are in the squads, so that we have internet service in the squads. That was a separate bill, and now that it's pretty much combined into one, it was a little bit higher, like I said, than we had anticipated, but still within reason, I would say. And then on 7T, we had taken delivery of our 3 new squads. We have 2 Ford F-150s, which are police pursuit rated, and then also a Dodge Charger, which is all-wheel drive and pursuit rated. Those came in within the dollar amount we had allocated for our budget. Took delivery on those, as you can see, and they'll probably be going online late summer to mid-fall at some point during that time. We're letting some of our other squads that we currently have online just get some more miles on them. But I'd be happy to answer any questions, otherwise look for your approval on those bills.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
And a second. Any questions or comments? Roll call?
Miller,
Yes.
Gershman.
Yes.
Keel,
Yes.
Neese, Myers.
Yes. Thank you. Fire Department activities, training reports, and correspondence packet, Chief.
All right. That seems to be, in the past, another busy month for us. Several EMS student ride-alongs. The EMS classes are wrapping up, so everybody's trying to get their ride time in for their patient contacts. Car seat checks again. We did a bunch, and as well as installs. On 8B, you'll note there's a public information officer class that was held here. It was well attended. I wasn't here. I was actually on vacation when it was happening, but the deputy chiefs, lieutenants, and some of our relief lieutenants attended, and they all found it very, very beneficial. We started our driver-operator pumper class for the 7 people in the department that do not have that. By state regulation, everybody has to have this class in order to operate our engines, and so they are going through that right now, learning a lot and getting that done. On 8D, we did firefighter interviews. We had invited 10 people to interviews. 7 showed up, and we're waiting for the physical agility results from CVTC, which should actually be here next week sometime, and we can go through those. Also on 8D, we met with Tracy from Advanced Physical Therapy and Sports Medicine and did a practice run-through of the job function test. The shift participating provided feedback. Really not too much negative feedback on it. It was very representative of what we do on a fire scene. Prior to the meeting, I handed out a timeline of kind of where we're at with the fitness testing. All 3 shifts are going to be participating in the fitness evaluations, the practice runs coming up here. The first one is next Friday, May 17th, and then May 20th and June 3rd. And then once those are all done, we'll be looking at the results with Tracy and creating the annual job test. Also in the monthly activities, there's several thank you letters and cards. And I guess that's about all that I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And
Hey Scott, can I just do a little follow-up? I know
Yes.
you met with the clinic, you met with Dr. Henry.
Yep.
So we're starting that process for review, but of course, the worst case secret in town is that they're merging. So I'm a little sensitive to the fact that a lot of this negotiation that you're getting into is going to be delayed. Do you have any impression at all if they're open to some of the requests that we have? Because when you look at it, it's such a, you're talking hundreds of thousands.
So, yeah, when the news came out 2 days ago, I had emailed Dr. Horniman to ask him, how this is going to affect our contract potentially. Right now, he doesn't see it really affecting us, not affecting LifeLink so much. It's always a possibility depending on how they set up their management structure. Gunderson has their own ambulance service. They have Tri-State Ambulance, ground and air. But in discussions with Dr. Horniman, he wants to keep moving forward on the discussions. As far as some of the things we asked for, we had talked about canceled intercepts en route.
Yeah.
And they're agreeable to a $100 reimbursement for each canceled en route.
Versus the $450, right, or?
$450 for a
Yeah,
completed,
yeah, so it'd be
correct.
$100. but-
$100 for going out the door, coming back.
Okay.
Our laundry, we've currently been paying $404 a month for laundry, and that started actually at the old station when we did our bedding, our towels, our patient linen, everything. And when we moved over here, it never changed. We have our own laundry facilities here, but that'll be reduced to about $75, $80 a month versus $404. And then our medical director fee is going to be reduced. This year it was $22,000, and that's going to be reduced to $10,000.
So let me just, let me just pretend I'm a citizen now. So do you think they are open to a monthly stipend, based on the size of our infrastructure, our people, our training, and the service that we provide for them, in lieu of just the per transport charge? What I'm saying is, a flat amount per month to help offset additional cost, training, mechanical, mileage issues.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
That might be hard too. They might just start saying it's further away then, if it's all included.
Yeah, I know, it's just, I'm just
Yeah.
thinking aloud. I think you're giving them exceptional service, there's no question. They can't, I don't believe they can get any better service than what you're providing. I believe it's a revenue generator for them. It's just, I would like to see, more investment by them in what you're providing.
Yeah, we have talked to them about that, the monthly retainer fee. And at the time we talked to them, they said that they were growing so fast, so large, or so quick, they couldn't add that into their costs. We'll see. But those are things that we continue to talk to them about.
So really, we haven't extended the contract yet, right? We just kind of said that we're going to wait? Or?
Well, the contract has been extended through the end of this year.
Okay, right,
Yep.
okay.
So that was the first phase, was to extend that through the end of the year to give us time to work through all of these additional things.
So-
And of course, the
So it's
merger talks.
June through December.
Yeah, the merger talks are going to throw another loop into this. We'll see what happens. I mean, Gunderson, if they're the lead agency in this, they very easily could bring ground ambulances over.
Is that your impression, Scott,
What's that?
that they're going to be the lead in this?
I
mean, there's
say I
nothing
don't know.
public. Does anybody have an opinion? I don't know.
Yeah, I really don't know. They just, we've heard that Marshall Clinic's going to operate as Marshall Clinic, Gunderson's going to operate as Gunderson under one new company. Things aren't going to change locally, but we all know how mergers go, so we really don't know.
So there's really three outcomes to this. Is one, we get some additional, either, and I appreciate what they're trying to do right now at the lottery, but when you look in terms of the size of the contract, it's really not a measurable, it's not a huge amount that's going to affect what you're doing every day. But, I think we just got to really keep an eye on this, as we look to extend it. How are your overtime costs now? I mean, with the transports? I mean, I know you don't have the 3 people on.
I would say they're probably comparable to last year.
Okay.
At this time. They're not, I mean, it's, we increased our overtime budget this year for EMS. We just actually started getting financials from the city, the monthly financial sheet, so I think it's doing okay. But I don't have a definitive.
I don't know if has anybody seen the year-end number for EMS? I can share that if you haven't seen it yet. It was about 600,000 to the green.
What do you see?
The EMS budget.
Oh, okay.
That's what, before adjustments, right? There's always some more adjustments, but.
There's little things that come in here and
Yeah.
there, and yeah.
One other point that we raised with the hospital in the discussions was to be reimbursed for calls that were, when we were called off. If we were up Highway 13 towards Abbotsford and they called and said, we don't need you anymore, that they've been agreeable to that. I believe at about $100 per canceled call. So if we roll out of here and we're on, then they run out there hot and then they get called back, it wasn't an issue before until we raised it with them and asked them to consider that, and they did go on the $100 so far in the negotiations. So that was a positive point as well.
Yeah.
That happens.
Last year it was about 40 times.
Yeah, it's not $4,000. Are you happy with the $100 offer, or, do you think that's enough?
I do.
Okay.
I do. It basically, it covers the rig going out.
If you're out for one block, you're gonna get the $100.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I talked to someone from the clinic yesterday, and they suggested that once the merger agreement is signed, providing it is, it'll take 3, 4, 5, 6 years to get all of the stuff sorted out. But I would remind, I guess, all of us that when you contract with an outfit, an entity, to provide service, you take some risks that, the entity is going to change, the conditions are going to change. You hope that it doesn't, and you've got things worked out so you're comfortable with them, and pretty soon this happens, and you start fresh again. And that's the risk we're taking by contracting with the clinic. It's just always going to be there.
One of the things that we're supposed to be a little bit over, obviously, we're keeping the financial each month, was like in 2018, wasn't it below what we were projecting for receivables? Like quite a bit below?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure. Finance has actually been keeping decent track of that.
Okay.
I think from what we had anticipated, it was pretty much right on.
Okay.
It's pretty, month to month is really odd. There's some months that will go on 20 in our facilities, and there's other months we'll go on 2. So,
Yeah.
But I think it was pretty close to where, it might be down a little, but pretty close.
Okay. I had to double check, but yeah, it seemed like it was a little bit, I could be wrong.
So Scott, can I give a suggestion? And it's not a big thing. I think since we finished up 18, they're going through the audit and adjustments. At some point, can we have finance come in and let's just do a deep dive on the EMS budget and the effects of the transports, additional staffing?
Mm-hmm.
Because part of it is, we have a billed amount, we have a recovered amount, it's allocating cost. I just think it's not going to hurt anybody to have him come in and do a
Yep.
presentation on that.
Actually, that's one of our tasks this year. Is we were waiting to get through, I believe it was May, and then we're going to sit down and we're going to review everything for the past year to see how it's working.
Okay. Yeah.
The reason they chose May is because then it'll be 1 full year with LifeLink.
Yeah, but if we could do it publicly, I think the public would appreciate it, and also the commission, I think, would be good to go through, and then have access to him for additional questions. Would be good. That's my idea. So.
Yeah, and I think Ryan will be fine with that.
Could you just remind me again, why are we actually even doing the contract?
Why?
Yeah, is it for monetary purposes, or is it, what's the whole purpose for doing it?
Well, for us, it's twofold. One, it is a revenue generator for the department, but it's a service that we want to help provide to not only our citizens but citizens coming into the city. So we have quite a few residents that are transported to our hospital and end up going to Madison or Milwaukee for specialty treatment. And as the local ambulance service, we want to be able to provide them with the transport instead of having to farm it out to another service. It's just, for us, it's customer service.
The concern I would have is there's other providers that could do it, should we be in the business of competing with private enterprise?
But, and right now, in the city, there are no other providers.
Right.
In this general area, there really aren't. The closest private provider is in Wisconsin Rapids. And there's just nobody up here. And that was another reason why we wanted to do this, is because there was nobody. You know, now if Tri-State comes in and sets up ambulance, in our opinion, it's not necessarily a good thing for us, and not so much for the interfacilities. That's not an issue. It's Tri-State also does the 911 service over in the La Crosse, over in the western part of the state. You know, and we both have experience with private ambulances, and not necessarily positive experience with them. But time will tell. Like I say, it could take 5-6 years before all of this finalizes. And but that's the primary reason is a lot of this customer service. That's why we're here. We're here to serve the public.
Are we pricing it too low then, to intentionally block out competition then?
I don't think, no. No, our rates, the rates that we use for ambulance transfers are done through our billing company. So they do a billing analysis with all of the area departments that are at least paramedic and critical care, and our rates are right in line with everybody around us, and that includes you know, like Safer and Wausau.
Could we see that at some point, Scott? Just as just as a matter of
Yeah, definitely.
discussion.
Yeah, I will actually. I'll dig it out and I'll email it over to you all.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions or comments on the fire department activities?
I just got one question. Scott, if you could give us at the next meeting just a little bit of update when you do a little homework on Gunderson and see what they're running for EMS ambulance, if they run their own or.
Gunderson they own Tri-State Ambulance.
They do.
They
Okay.
do.
Okay.
And it's a 3-state operation.
It is.
Yeah, so it's a huge
I mean, really in the back of your mind, you have to ask her the question is, are they gonna staff and, you know, Marshfield Clinic's Marshfield Clinic, but is it gonna end up, is Tri-State gonna end up being staffed here?
I don't know. I have a gut feeling that down the road, it very well could happen.
But if they don't, they'll be too cheap.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah, if not, then we'll revisit everything.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good.
Anything else? Then we'll place those on file in fire department activities. Thank you. There's a issue, review the approval of flex time proposal for all daytime staff. DC Bagels.
Thank you. So that should have been in your packets. I emailed it out ahead of time. This is an idea that I thought of quite a long time ago through the promotional process. My own opinion, one of the biggest negatives to promotion was going off shift. I think all of our guys very much enjoy working the shift hours. Going to days means, you know, here Monday through Friday, you have your 2 days. But on top of that, and again, we all know it ahead of time, and as I put in the packet, not a complaint at all, just putting the facts out there. Between meetings, training, coming in for overtime, which actually not overtime, coming in off of our shift for ambulance standbys, fire calls, we're here quite a lot. So talking with Deputy Chief Fletty, we kind of came up with a game plan, talked with Chief Owen and asked if we could pursue it. He kind of gave us the green light, said sure, you guys can look into it. Talked with the city, with HR, they have no issue. They say each department can set their own schedules. And again, talking with the chief, wanted to bring it to the commission for your approval. Pretty much what we're looking for is just flexibility. So if we work 4 10-hour days, having that extra weekday off, if there's meetings or projects that need to be done, then we adjust the schedule as needed. So it wouldn't be 4 10s every week. It's just going to change as needed. That's really the main point of the idea. So asking for your approval for that.
Are there any questions?
I have a few.
Yes.
So in my world, as a salaried employee, if I want to go to 4 10s, I become an hourly employee. It's just the way it is. You work at least 45 hours a week in a salaried position. This is not very aligned with that. If I have a salary employee who wants to go to 410s, they convert to an hourly employee. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I also don't know whether, I don't think there's enough detail in here. The other criteria is changing staffing in my world. You must meet the business need of the organization. And I don't feel like this document outlies the fact that there's no data here. There's nothing to show me that you're going to meet the business need of the organization by making this shift.
Okay.
There's got to be supporting documentation from other groups that this is improved morale. This is, there's got to be more just than I'm seeing in this document. The other thing in my world as a person who is a director, as a leader, being present more is really what's expected of me, not being present slightly less. And I get you're saying you'd be here as needed, but there's also, I have to have accountability for that, and there's also no sort of, I get flexibility. Flexibility is very important to me and my staff. It just doesn't feel like it's as well supported as I would like to see.
Okay. I guess one thing just off the top of my head as far as, and again, our worlds I think are very different. Again, when there's a fire call at 2 in the morning, we come in. Typically, ambulance standbys when the shift is short, we come in. It can be a holiday, it can be a weekend, it doesn't matter. So I apologize not having more documentation. I guess I'm not real sure what I can do for documentation on it.
There have to be trends in the industry that say this is beneficial. There has to be something that says if all of these other organizations are doing it, there has to be something that says this benefits our department because of these reasons. I feel like there has to be something like that out there, not just because I said so.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess I never thought to look for something like that. I can look, I don't know what's out there in that regards. I do know I've talked with other departments. As I had on the list, both Wausau Point, Wisconsin Rapids, which are comparable departments to us, also offer the same thing. They have flexibility in their scheduling. My counterpart in Wisconsin Rapids works 410s. And the same thing, he'll tell me that he'll be working Monday through Thursday, but if there's a meeting on Friday or a project that he's working on, he'll still come in on Friday. That's my idea for this. So again, still do at least the minimum 40.
How do they, again, not that we don't trust you, but how do they, what's the accountability for that? What is the tracking?
There is no tracking because we're salary. We're just, if we're expected to be here, do our job. We don't have a clock that we punch. As far as accountability, I don't think I can give you that one. I know, I personally track my hours and I know how many hours I put in. But I don't think there's, at any point in time, even when I first started looking at management here, any management that's put in less than 40 hours a week. When we have a conference on the weekend, we work Monday through Friday, go to the conference Saturday and Sunday, and then back Monday through Friday again. So this is something I'm looking to give us a little bit more flexibility to get that a little bit of personal time off.
Right. Well, and my world is like that too. When we attend meetings, my freezers go down at 2 in the morning. I was transferring. I understand that as a leader, you have to come in
Yes.
under dire circumstances. I definitely understand that. So those were just my comments. I feel like it could be, I would like to understand how other departments, other people who are adopting this strategy in your line of business are seeing the benefits of it.
Sure. I definitely do what I can to find out. Thank you.
Other comments or questions?
I have a couple comments. Nothing really major. I appreciate the proposal. I think, part of my, I'd echo some of her concerns, but I would like to add just a couple other concerns. I think back to simply, Chief Owen's comment about we're a little bit of an island here. We don't have a lot of additional support. And when we looked at specifically the deputy chief position for prevention, Chief had looked at it, whether or not it could be done like part-time or full-time. No, it requires full-time. And I look at it and I say, we have one location, which is different than some of the other departments that you compare it to. We have a very flat organizational structure, and we're not super deep in terms of time. And what my worry is, in terms of unintended consequences, I mean, in theory, you could not have a secretary out front during business hours. You could have 1 or 2 DCs gone, or the chief in one DC. And to me, I don't know if it's an acceptable trade-off. And I'm all about, you know, attracting and retaining people, keeping employees happy. But I think in the sense we're just a little bit different. I hate to use that term that we're an island, but it's true. We have one location, we're very flat organizational structure, and everybody has a role. And in a salary position, you know, the majority of people in the world work over 40 hours. And I'm not being critical of that. I'm not being critical you got a couple weekends or 2 a.m., but that's part of the job, right? And that, you know, that's part of what you've done. But, you know, I just think, you know, at this point, I could not support it without some really, really intensive detail in terms of how this would all work. Because I think trying to manage this could be really a great amount of work. But, you know, I appreciate your enthusiasm for bringing it up. But
Thank you. A couple of points, if I could bring up.
yeah.
One of the issues, again, if we weren't here, or at least if somebody was gone, or was a DC here, our shift commanders are all deputy chiefs. They know how to handle things as well. But other than that, with the not only personal phones, but our department phones, we're almost always available. And again, that's what we've done in the past. I'm going to maintain that availability. The second thought, it was, and maybe more palatable to you, is to do it as a trial for some period of time to see how it goes, maybe answer some of the questions you guys have, if we're not going to move forward with it as a completed item.
Okay, so let me give you an idea, and I'm not saying I'm supporting this. I could see where some departments, multiple locations, probably from a seasonality standpoint would have that available. But, you know, I would really want some hard data as far as, you know, 12 months of the year seems like a lot. And, you know, I'd like to hear from the chief too. Scott, I mean, where are you at on this?
I support it. You know, right now, Steve came up and asked me about it, and like you said, you run with it, you discuss it, that's fine. I don't have issues with it. Sorry, my eyes don't hit me today. As far as tracking it, I don't think it would be that big of an issue. The deputy chiefs track the amount of time that they come in off duty, and that's usually readily available. I think it would be, in the long run, a perk for promoting into these positions. People don't want 40-hour in this organization. I'm thankful that Steve and Pete did, you know, but it's, to me, just having the flexibility to adjust the staffing is important. Steve is here like 6 a.m. until 5 p.m. every day already. He comes in early because he wants to, and stays late. He was here last night doing step to bleed training and all of that. And I think it's I think it's worthwhile to at least do a trial on, to look at and see, you know, and just even for, yeah, just as a trial. I think it would be fine, but again, that's, you know, your decision.
Do you, in practice, so say you stayed till you worked a 12-hour day yesterday, in practice, then your next day, if you have an appointment, you can take that. I mean, that's already flexibility you offer.
There is some flexibility with it, yes.
So there is some combination of that already in your practice, your daily operations.
Just from a public perception standpoint, I think a lot of people in the public, if they didn't look into it more, wouldn't understand it the same way you do. So I think people would push back on it in just the general community. So what's the benefit to the community?
Well, I don't know if there's a benefit to the community. There would be no downside to the community. We would still have our hours. We would still get all of our work done. We're still available 24/7, just like we always have been. The benefit would be to the employees, as Scott said, and as I wrote up, as a perk, not only for current staff, but for future staff when other guys look at promoting. Honestly, I believe you'll see more people interested in the daytime positions if this were available to them. This was the #1 issue. You can ask any of the guys on the floor. Moving to days, this is the #1 issue that you'll hear about.
You know, the thing I worry about is you could come in at 4 a.m. and work until noon, you got your 8 hours in, but chief would need access to you at some point, so he's going to pick you up on the phone. Not a very efficient means to be able to conduct business.
Yeah, and I don't have to specifically lay it out, but that's not my vision. Not to come in
and
at
I'm sure
4
it's not,
a.m.
but
Yeah.
again, it's all unintended consequences, because part of it is, you could say you're answering emails at 5 o'clock in the morning, and you work until 1, and then you work 2 hours the next day, and you're off, for 3 or whatever. You know what I mean?
And so you could think about work for 4 nights a week and take Friday off, in theory.
In theory, but again, that's not my intention. I thought about laying out a schedule, but again, I'm trying to leave it more flexible. Ultimately, it would be the chief's authority saying, no, you can't work 5 nights a week and take off every day. Even just as currently, if we need to take off for a couple hours, like Commissioner Mee said, it's still his authority to say yes or no, you can do that.
But I go back to all the conversations we've had about evaluating the DCs and the flat structures, especially prevention. And Scott was very firm about the fact that we needed somebody 5 days a week because of the sheer number, and a lot of that can't be done other than outside of business hours. So, I mean, my personal feeling is, I don't know what the commission is, if you want to come back with more data, I'll certainly be willing to look at that, but as of now, I wouldn't even want to go and try it. I don't think I have enough information.
A couple of quick comments. Steve, one of the things that you have as a bit of a bump in the road is that you've got a commission where all of the members have basically worked salaried positions and never conceptualized what they did on an hourly basis, which takes me to the next point. You can't on the one hand say I'm salaried and the hours don't count, and then say I'm suggesting 4 10-hour days. You can't make an hourly argument about a salaried position. That really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I take the 40 hours out altogether and talk about the work that has to be done, and whether it's done in 10 hours a day or 12 hours a day or 6 hours a day, the work has got to be done. I think all of us sitting on the commission, I remember getting up at 5 in the morning to get to Madison by 9:30, spending the whole day in Madison, driving home, getting up at 5 the next morning, driving all the way to Rice Lake, driving back to Marshfield, and then having full days of work on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday that included a concert Thursday night and a play on Saturday. You're a salaried employee, you get the work done. It doesn't make any difference what the hours are. So I wouldn't make an argument about 4 10-hour days. You're putting yourself in an hourly wage position, and you're not.
I guess I'm a little confused because it sounds like what you're saying is that basically this would work. We could do 4 10s as long as, again, the work is all getting done.
As long as the work was accounted for.
And
I'll tell you what I really think. And I wouldn't accept it if you suggested it, but it's what I really think. I don't care the number of hours you work as long as the work gets done. The work has to get done, and it has to get done in a way that serves the organization. It can't be on your schedule. It's got to be what the organization needs. And at this point, you haven't given me anything that convinces me that the organization is best served by you guys working 4 10-hour days, other than you'd like it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, it appears that it would benefit this discussion if you were to do some more homework on it and bring it back.
I will.
show some different things. It's good, it's good to be thinking of new ideas all the time, and appreciate you bringing it up, but I think that the consensus is that there needs to be more information provided before they can make a decision.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Thanks. Police Department activities, training reports, and correspondence packet, Chief.
Usually I'm the one that extends the meetings longer, so
We're not done yet.
I'm enjoying this.
Well, I'd hurry up if I were you.
I'm going to talk fast.
It's okay, we get paid by the hour, so we'll take over.
Oh. Just a couple things to bring to your attention for the month of April. On the 10th of April, when one of our newest officers, Officer Rehnquist, and his training officer, Officer Kramer, read at Bright Horizons. We try to get to the library and to different daycares to read to the kids, just to have that interaction with a uniformed police officer and the children, just so there's that fear factor in a lot of those instances is taken away. On April 10th and 11th, we sent an officer to standardized field sobriety testing or training. He's now a trainer for our department. Why I bring this up is we haven't had somebody go through this training in quite some time, and the individual that we had trained in this position was no longer really in an active alcohol enforcement role. So it's nice to have a younger officer of about 3.5 to 4 years experience in that trainer role that's very active in traffic enforcement and alcohol enforcement. On April 17th, our Citizens Academy started. We have 21 students in that class. So every Wednesday night from 6:30 to 9, we have Citizens Academy. That finishes up at the end of May. And so far it's been very well received. It didn't make the report that we handed out, but on the 18th of April, Officer Giacomino, or Detective I should say, Giacomino had her baby. She had a baby boy, and they're doing well. On the 27th of April, we had there was a statewide prescription drug take-back event that happened. So each community that participated in this did a citywide or a countywide take-back event. Ours was up at Walmart. In that one-day event, which ran from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., we took back 164 pounds of pharmaceuticals. That on top of our 548 that we took in our drop box that we have at the police department, put our total for this half of year. So we always do a take back, we always count in April and October. So from pretty much the end of October through this point in April, we took back 712 pounds of pharmaceuticals, over-the-counter medications and such. We take those up to Wausau. They ultimately get shipped out of state for proper incineration. On the 28th and 29th, we had our last 2 practice runs for our job function test. This was, so then on May 1st is when we went live with when we legitimately went live with our mandatory fitness job function test. So we haven't set a date yet, but probably sometime in late summer, early fall, we'll run everybody through it again, and there's the requirement that you pass, and if you're not able to pass, you'll either need a doctor's excuse as to why you cannot pass the minimum, or be placed on light duty potentially, and with that doctor's excuse, you can also be placed on light duty until you can pass it for up to 3 months. And lastly, you'll see on the 29th and 30th of April, we performed some presentations at the senior high. We do a modified, and I've brought this up before, but we do a modified Citizens Academy, but a Student Citizens Academy out at senior high. Do this to the criminal justice classes, and we're able to either elicit a response or elicit an interest in the profession of law enforcement, or maybe dissuade somebody from law enforcement if they thought they wanted it, but then they learn a little bit more about it through our presentations. Obviously, it's our interest to encourage people to enter the profession, but it's not meant for everybody, and I'd hate to see somebody waste their money in going to school for it and then to come to find out that it's not something that they are truly interested in. So we take pretty much what the curriculum is for our Citizens Academy and bring it into the high school and just kind of condense it so we can cover it in the shorter time frames. But We've been doing that for about 4 years now, and it's been well received as well. So last thing to bring to your attention is on 10H and 10I, we sold one of our detective vehicles. We had considered trading this in towards one of the purchases of our new vehicles that we took delivery of. Based on what we were offered on trade-in, we looked at, we brought it out to auction, and we actually received almost $2,000 more at auction than we would have received as a trade-in to those new vehicles. So we were kind of excited to see that. We would look for those to be placed on file unless you have any questions.
Any questions or comments on the police department activities?
How are the dash cams working now? I mean, any update on that? I know.
We were having some challenges with it. There was a firmware, in talking to Axon, they said it was kind of the perfect storm, unfortunately, since we had just got out of a bad system and we're going into their system. They started, when we transitioned, they started recognizing some things that were going wrong on their side. So they started working on some firmware updates for both the hardware and software. This is still ongoing. One was pushed out, I want to say, about 2 weeks ago, and it's solved about 70% of the problems we were having. There's a physical means to fix that other 30% that we are doing right now, but obviously it's not as conducive or not as easy to do. It's a matter of hard booting battery packs that are in each of the squads if we start having problems. They're working on another firmware update that they said should remedy that. And it sounds like they might be pushing new battery packs out to all of their customers, which I mean is thousands of departments. So it was a flaw in the system that just happened to be diagnosed at the same time we were transitioning into their system, so that's where some of our frustrations lie. All in all, they're working very well. The body cameras are working amazing.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. So once we get over this little hump in the squad cameras and the challenges with the battery packs,
We'll be able to sleep at night.
yeah. So it's been a struggle, and I feel bad because our squad cameras before, the watch guard systems that we had in the squads before, were actually working really well. It was the body cameras we were having the issues with, and the lack of integration between the two, or the challenges with that. So now we went to a better body camera system, but now we were having some issues with those squad cameras. So I'm hoping by the next meeting that other firmware update would have been sent through, battery packs updated, and I'll give you a better
Yeah, we could just follow up with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of interesting to follow this.
Yeah.
It's been the year of mechanical issues, you know, the fire department.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Radios are working well, though.
Radios
From
are
what I'm
working
told, I think in the next week, the towers at utilities and up on McMillan and St. Joe's are going to be turned on, and we'll start seeing what difference that makes, actually running off of 3 towers, the fire department running off of 2, and it's still in the works as far as remedying getting the county tower out on Galvin to be up. We're hoping that'll be done by sometime during the summer.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thanks for the update. The next item is in the police department, some job description updates.
Yep.
Chief?
I'm looking for your approval of these job description updates. There was a little bit of cleanup language in some of these, just using the correct terms. One thing we noticed in the job descriptions on some of them was that kind of just the catch-all phrase at the very end of each numbered job description, which was perform other duties as assigned. There's other times where we need officers, detectives, administration to perform other tasks that really aren't, and this isn't all-inclusive, but it's always nice to have that catch-all of other duties as assigned. So we put that on each of the job descriptions where it was lacking. But then I guess the biggest change that we wanted to bring forward to you guys is, since as of May 1st we went with the mandatory job function test, you'll see under the knowledge, skills, and abilities on each of the job descriptions, mine included, says that an individual must pass the annual job function test, and then it also says must pass annual firearms evaluation and biannual emergency vehicle operations course. The firearms and the emergency vehicle operations course mandates are set by the state. They were just never in our job description, so I thought it was good to put that in there. Then obviously with, as of May 1st going live, placing the annual job function test in each of the job descriptions I thought was a necessity, because then it tells each of the employees from here on out when they're hired, but also lets each of the employees know right now that that the requirement is out there, that they're able to pass that test. I had thoughts of putting it in earlier, but then it would have to have the clause of after May 1st of 2019. And I thought it was better just to push this new job description out after May 1st, so we could just have that in there. Be happy to answer any questions you might have. Those are the major changes. Otherwise, I would look for your approval on the job descriptions.
I got one question, and I hate, the last thing I do is be too picky, but on page 11C, under other, it goes across one thing and the next, and well, felony or domestic abuse conviction, semicolon, and there's like nothing.
Sure. Yeah, so what had happened, we did, as you can see, the headings under qualifications for education, experience, license and certificates, and knowledge, skills, and abilities. That's new. It was before just a paragraph, so we can clean that up, absolutely. It was pretty much just a paragraph, and the semicolon probably fit because it was probably somewhere in the middle of that paragraph for others. But we can definitely clean that up, and if you see any other things needing attention, I'd be happy to get those cleaned up. After approval from this body, it'll go to finance, budget, personnel for their approval, and then brought through the city council in the consent agenda.
Rick, who wrote this?
The original job description or the updates?
Well, what I read, who wrote it?
We had, when we did the restructure, I had written the job descriptions, and those were passed by this body probably about 2 years ago, going on 2 years ago, and then the red line or the blue line updates in this, HR did that.
Have these been run past HAP or your own attorneys or specialists?
No.
Okay.
And I don't believe that they normally would be run through there as far as outlining what an individual's expectations are. I can, I guess, but I don't know that we've done that in the past. Not saying we couldn't.
In the chief's description, there's an error in the second line of the first paragraph.
Second line of the first
The commission is not appointed by the mayor. The commission is appointed by the common council.
Yeah.
Okay.
In considering the current circumstances, I think it's important that that be corrected.
Yeah, that's the,
Yeah, they showed it to me. And
Would you stand up and show me some enthusiasm?
Can you, is that enthusiastic? Yeah. I think
Well, there's one in here that says part of what they gotta do is demonstrate enthusiasm.
Sure.
I want a demonstration.
he looks enthusiastic.
Yeah, very
It's not pretty when he does it, so I don't know what you want on it.
Yeah. If the cameras weren't here, I'd probably be a little more apt to be enthusiastic. No. kidding.
On 11I, it says, skills, ability to demonstrate enthusiasm. Well, I want to see something. I don't know what that means.
Total.
I'm just being picky, but that struck me as a little odd.
A lot of, I guess, just so you know, as far as
I expected cheerleaders, what I expect.
the part of this job description, part of our job descriptions didn't change from the restructure. Part of them did. What I also did at the time when we did the restructure and looked at the old job descriptions that the city has, uses an older system to where it says 15% of your time will be allocated to this, 10% of your time, 5%, and that is so hard to,
Yeah.
actually manage that. We went with this new system where it just lists out all the descriptions of principal duties without percentages. And I think that that's the direction that the city as a whole will go at some point. But it's also the way when I pulled Wausau, Wisconsin Rapids, Stevens Point, I also went through Greenfield, Mequon, Watertown, La Crosse. I pulled I probably had 15 different job descriptions for all of these different things. And I wanted to make sure that we weren't missing anything as it related to departments that have an assistant chief role and the same structure as we have. And I shared with them because they were interested in what we came up with back 2 years ago. So I shared with all of those departments that helped me out what we had come up with as well. So yeah, it's good to reach out like the FD does, to reach out to those other departments and try to see what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong or lacking.
Excuse me, I'm fine with it except for that error in fact
Right.
on the first one, and that has to be corrected. And the demonstrating enthusiasm, I've been through that. There are 1,000 ways
Right.
to demonstrate enthusiasm, and some of them are very low key. So I don't know what it means, and I don't know how you're going to assess somebody in terms of that, but that's fine. I'll move.
I guess just to ask a question, would it be better if it said a mayor appointed and council approved?
No,
Police and Fire
the
Commission?
mayor does not appoint. The mayor nominates.
Okay.
Leave the mayor out of it altogether, because the appointment
Council
to the
approved.
commission comes from the council.
Okay. Perfect. So I'll make that change. Do you want to see it back
Yeah,
before we pass it
please,
through?
that'd be great. Just to read through one more time, I'd like to see that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if it delays you a month and that's an imposition, send it to us.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you. So I guess I would look for your approval with that. I'll probably just to get this through with that change happening on May 1st. And we're past that already. I guess I'll probably email that out to you. So would I be able to get an approval pending?
Well, yeah, I'd be willing to move approval
Okay.
on the condition that the corrections pointed out be made and shared with the commission.
One second.
A motion and second to approve. Any other questions? Roll call.
Miller,
Yes.
Gershman,
Yes.
Keo,
Yes.
Neese,
Yes.
Myers.
Yes. Which brings us to item number 12, which is consideration of a motion to adjourn into closed session pursuant to sections 19.85, parent 1, parent C, Wisconsin statutes considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, specifically to conduct performance reviews of the police chief and fire chief as a commission. I need a motion to go into closed session.
I'll second.
Motion in a second. Roll call.
Miller,
Yes.
Gershman,
Yes.
Keo,
Yes.
Neese, Myers.
Yes.